Hi, I'm David Blair. I'm an American, and I'm currently a vice president at the Center for China and Globalization. I live in Yunnan province. I very much enjoy it there, getting to see the farmland and the atmosphere. Well, as with everything else, it's complicated. Part of it is Trump is a negotiator. And if you look over his history, he tends to negotiate very hard and then make a deal. When he built the Trump Tower in New York, there was Tiffany's, a company that had the building next door, and he owned the property where Trump Tower now is. You need to buy air rights from shorter buildings to build up higher. It's the way the zoning laws work in New York. Tiffany refused to sell the air rights. And what Trump did is he had the architects design a very ugly building. And he told Tiffany, I'm going to build this ugly building next to your building if you don't sell me the air rights. And they ended up selling him the air rights. I heard him recently talking to a reporter, and he said, in my first administration, I had very good relations with my friend, President Xi Jinping, and I will have again. So I think he's looking for a deal with China. You have to understand Trump's constituency is primarily the American working class. And so anything that will be seen as helping the American working class is the deal he's looking for. I think it'll be some variation of something like the Phase 1 agreement, but probably a bigger deal. I don't think he's interested in dominating China in East Asia in any way. I don't think he's very interested in foreign policy in the way past administrations have been. You know, if you look back 20 years ago, there was a lot of talk about Chimerica. This was Neil Ferguson, a British scholar, wrote a book called Chimerica. And basically he argued that the two economies were going to be they're essentially one economy. I don't think that's realistic going forward. Also, I remember talking to a lot of people in the 2000s that were making investments in China, and they weren't doing business analysis. I remember talking to a vice chairman of one of the big banks, and he said, we're investing in China because China's the future and we've got to be there. He had no analysis of how they were going to make money here. And they've subsequently left because they didn't have any business model here. So I don't think that sort of that feeling from the 2000s is ever going to come back because it was unreasonable to begin with. So I think China and the U.S. are both in a unique position in the world. They're both big countries. China in the year 2000 was a small economy, like about the same size as Spain, but now it's at least as big as the United States. You know, it depends on how you measure, but probably bigger. And big countries don't build their economies by foreign trade. You know, foreign trade is good for China, but it will not be the growth engine going forward. I think the Chinese government's emphasis on dual circulation, common prosperity, rural revitalization, all those things are the growth drivers for the next 10 years in China. So the trade with the United States it's good, but it's not that important. And for the United States is a big country. The gains from trade are pretty small. So the tariffs don't matter that much in terms of the overall economy. They will cause a shock. There will be adjustment periods, but I don't think they matter that much. For the smaller countries, they matter a lot. But for the two big giant countries in the world, they don't matter that much. So I hope they don't become a point of contention. But China's future does not depend on U.S. policy. It depends on Chinese policy. The United States and China don't have anything to fight about, really. You know, if you look at our interests, there's really nothing unless you look for something. Now, it's more not on trade, but on technology. There's been a lot of arguments. But I think the United States and Europe, I guess, are trying to put restrictions on Chinese technological development. That's new. I used to tell people, well, the United States and Europe, they're not trying to keep China down, but this Biden administration is. And I don't think that's going to work because, I mean, if you look at chips, I mean, I guess they're hard to make, but they're not impossible to make. China's got a lot of smart people. They're going to figure out how to make the most advanced chips. And then there will be a new competitor, which I think is a good thing. I like to see competition in the world. So I know people are getting really exercised about this, but I don't think it really fundamentally matters. Trade policy is not the fundamental issue. As long as we can maintain communications and not have war or any stupid thing like that, then everything's okay. Even if you have some tariffs, well, it's not going to affect very much. I think that's great, especially the Belt and Road infrastructure expenditures. I spent a good bit of time in Africa, and I like Africa very much. And the building of the railroad and the roads and the dams in Africa has been a great benefit to the people there. And I hope they will give a chance for those countries to take off and become economically prosperous in the future. So I think that's a great contribution. And that investment was not going to come from anywhere else. Nobody else was going to make that kind of investment. The United States has had a policy probably since the end of the Cold War, and certainly doubled down on by the Clinton administration, of trying to maintain American dominance. And it has not been good for either the people of the United States or for the rest of the world. It's a failed policy. And so I think one of the reasons Trump was elected is the American people recognize that's a failed policy. So I think we're going to see, my prediction is that we're going to see a move more toward an isolationist U.S. That will cause some problems in the world. I hope we can go back to sort of the 19th century in the United, not for China, but in the United States, where basically we're willing to trade with everybody. We try to be productive, but we're not trying to boss you around. And I think China's really, as far as I can tell, not trying to boss people around. You're not demanding that they change their governments or that they attack somebody or something like that. Well, this is a very minority view, but my view is that dominance of the dollar has been a terrible thing for the United States. Because what it's allowed to do, it's allowed the U.S. government to act in irresponsible ways in terms of the budget. It's allowed us just to keep borrowing money without any approval from the taxpayers. So I think that, I kind of hope it fails. The more the United States tries to use the dollar and especially the banking system, the financial system, as a policy tool to threaten people, the more people are going to want to leave it. If I'm threatened with criminal procedures by somebody, if I use their system, I'm going to go to another system, regardless. And the same with the banking system. I think the U.S. policy is just pushing people to leave the current banking system. And they will, if they find alternatives.